Hey guys, Spin Pixie here, and today I'm going to talk about the Fae. My goal is to hopefully help anyone out who's new to working with them or who's considering working with them to help them out with my experience. So I'm going to cover my communication with them, possible them communicating with you, and I'm going to cover offerings. When I originally set out to contact the fairy realm, I read all the books and I did all the meditating, and I tried so hard to contact the Fae. I really wanted that to be part of my practice. This started maybe a few years after I started practicing witchcraft. So I was still fairly new in my practice, but I had a friend who was very versed in fairy magic, and she had fairies, and I wanted fairies too. So I started reading the books and doing the meditating, and it got to the point where I was trying so hard, but nothing was happening. And I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but when you try hard, like to do something with your energy, to astral project, to lucid dream, to contact the fairy realm, to contact your spirit guide, you end up giving yourself spiritual, constipation. Well, because energy to me is like tunnel ways, when I push things like magic through them, they go freely. But when you're trying, when you do things, you think of different ways to do things, and you're so caught up in thinking of different ways to do things and trying that nothing's going through because you're too busy trying to try. If that makes sense. So I was like this for a year and a half or so. I just got tired of trying to contact the fairy realm. And so there's like this kind of like this I give up, and you walk away from it. But then there's this I give up, and then you kind of peek to see if there's maybe a snowball's chance that you're going to get what you want. And that's kind of where I was. So I was open. I allowed myself to be open to it. So one night, I just randomly out of the blue had a dream that I was in a clearing. Like, I just remember seeing green and flowers. And at first, it was like some people I knew, I felt like I knew, but a lot of people I didn't. And I was playing, on like a slide, and there was like waterfalls and stuff, and I was just playing with kids. Like, I don't remember if I was older, younger, or they were older. I have no clue. I just felt like I was playing with kids on slides, and they were just playing everywhere. And then at some point, I just kind of stopped, and I was looking around, and I was just looking, and then I got the feeling of, don't see with your eyes, see with your eye. And when my third eye opened up, it was just like I could see everything from a new perspective. And it wasn't children that I was playing with, they were fairies. And everything just kind of got bigger. This tiny little this big-ish clearing expanded to being something very vast and enormous. And I felt like I was on the outskirts of the realm, and that just past where I was, there was a threshold that I just felt like I wasn't allowed to go near. Like, it would just, repel me back. So I was content being in my little area throughout the dream. And as I was waking up from the dream, the last thing I heard someone tell me is that the door is open. And ever since that dream, I've been in contact with the fairy realm. And I have fae that come around my home, my altar. So what happened after that dream was things started going missing. Sometimes they were always shiny. Like, my keys would go missing, change that I had for the bus set out would go missing. just things would go missing. And my cat started the little things that cats do where they're just kind of batting at the air. And that stuff started happening, and then it became more and more frequent, and then one day I just found myself setting up a fairy altar. And I didn't know what to put on it, no clue. I knew my friend had a fairy altar, and she had a really pretty log that she had for them, and she had like fairy statues and stuff like that. And she had all this kinds of stuff, and I didn't have anything like that. So I didn't know what to put up there. So I had a little wand made out of a redwood tree that I put up there, and I had I had some ivy that I had clipped from the front yard of the apartment we lived in, and I just had some random stuff that I thought they might like. So then it was around this time that I had a friend who was taking ceramics classes, and so she would make the prettiest stuff, and it was all Celtic-y stuff, but she didn't want to keep it, or she didn't like it, or whatever. So she would let us go through it and see what we wanted. And so the first thing that I picked out was a really pretty little bowl. And I started using it for an offering. It had all this Celtic artwork over it. Started using that for my bowl, my offering bowl. So I put offerings outside, and I, start putting things up. And I wasn't really even thinking about it. I just went with what I felt. And it went like that, and we were just communicating back and forth. And that's kind of how it started. Well, once it started, I figured, okay, now, I've read in books, that fairies can be tricksters, that they kidnap mortals, and all this kinds of stuff, They can be sinister, and the different types of fairies that there are, because there are a multitude of fairies. For anyone who's new to working with the fae, there are a multitude of fairies. They don't all have wings. They, some of them don't want anything to do with humans. Some fairies like to mess with humans. Some fairies just don't care one way or the other. And some like to help the human people. I will try and find the website that has some of the best information on the fae. And I'll try to put it in the description if I can find it, so that you guys can have that to look at. But I started, I had read a lot of stuff. And so I already knew that when I started formulating with my relationship with the fae, that I wanted to establish, I guess boundaries would be the easiest way to explain it. It's not so much you stay over there and I'll stay over here. Like, I guess that's fine if you have them in your garden and you don't want to work with them. But, like, it's different. It's, for me and my fae, it's more like, this is how I think our relationship is going to work best. And putting that intention out there. And setting your offerings out, originally, when you're first setting your first offerings out, do it with the intention of, I'm doing this to honor and respect the fairy realm, and have in mind those boundaries that you want to set. I'm not saying give conditions on your offerings, because once you put a condition on your offering, what's the point? But what I'm saying is have your own ideas of what your relationship is going to be. Because if you don't set some sort of boundary, then you end up with a sort of a horror story, And I remember I was watching something on YouTube, and they were being all kinds of anti-fairy. But it's just, the person who was talking was clearly somebody who did not set their boundaries. And going on and saying, oh, the fae are bad, and you don't want to mess with them, and blah, 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 blah. Well, no, you don't want to mess with them, but you can definitely work with them, if you're smart about it. So anyway, I kind of felt like I wanted to do this video because of that, too. But anyway, so what I did is clearly set boundaries. So one day they would go play with my cat. And then the next day she's, there came a point where the energy in my grandmother's house got real bad. And they were more than playing with her. They were aggravating her. She's batting at the air and hissing. She's, running into walls. She's, I would catch her running through the house like she's never ran before. And I'd catch her, and her little heart's pounding like she's been being chased. And, she's just uncomfortable. So I had to step in and draw a boundary. And it's never been to a point where they've taken over my life or my practice. My primary deity are my primary deity. And my fairy allies are my allies. There's a difference. And I made that very clear in my beginning stages of the relationship. I hope I didn't just confuse the hell out of you. But that you have to just kind of be like, this is deity, you are ally. And so that's kind of how I worked my relationship with them, and it's worked. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you is if they're communicating with you, or how you know, or what have you. If you find things are going missing, the fairy did not always do it. Sometimes we misplace things and people put them back for us, or sometimes we simply misplace things and they're gone. The fae do not always do it. Now, sometimes, if you're somebody who does not commonly work with the fairy, chances are the fairy didn't do it. Now, if you're somebody who's open to the idea or have, kind of tossed the idea back and forth in your mind, then that communication is open enough that they're going to try and play with you. They're going to try to take little things and put them back, or take little things and not put them back. They're communicating. Okay, so if you find things are being taken, like, more often, or if they're being taken, this is what I would do. This is what I started doing. Instead of being like, I'll give you an offering if you return my item, I didn't work it like that. The way that I did it was, I wrote a little something that basically said, fairies, can you find this for me? If you do this for me, I will leave you an offering. Not, hey, did you take that? Can I have it back, please? Because there's a difference in that. You see, there's a difference in that relationship. One is being dominated, and the other one is having a place of power. So if you're saying, can I have my item back, I'll give you an offering, then you're going to be in a place where they can dominate the practice. But if you're saying, if you find this for me, not giving them credit for taking it, if you find this for me, I will leave you an offering. That's setting up a sort of quid pro quo relationship that tends to work a little bit better than coming from a place of being overpowered by the fairy. So that's what I did. I started asking them to find what was lost, and then leaving offerings. And it works for me. I mean, I hardly ever have things go missing that the fae took. If I happen to miss something, then I will ask them to find it, and I'll work accordingly. And they're just not, finders of lost items, but, there's plenty of other magics that you can work with the fairy. But that's a whole nother video. So anyway, communication with the fae has to be, you have to be open, and it has to be on their terms to initiate it. And that's fine. But once you are certain that you have contact with that realm, then you can start asserting your own boundaries, rules, whatever you want to call them. I wouldn't, that seems like too harsh a term, but That's the best I can come up to explain it. So, offerings. Let's go ahead and get into offerings. Well, as I told you earlier, very early when I started setting up my altar, my friend gave me a plate. And the first time the Fae ever requested an offering, because there's a difference, they can request and they can demand. It just depends. The first time they ever requested an offering of me, I was kind of like, okay, I'll do it, and I forgot. So the plate went missing. And when I found it again, it had this perfect triangle slice missing from it. Like, they had taken a piece of pizza, kind of, like, from my plate. And I never saw the other piece. Never found it at all. It was just not there. And so I ended up leaving my offerings on a partially eaten plate. Then again, they were asking for offerings. This was like a couple years later. They were asking for offerings. I didn't hurry up. Plate went missing, never to be returned. So then there was silence from the Fae. And it was not until I got them a new chalice, again from the same friend who made these beautiful little potteries, I brought them home a chalice, and I said, is this good? Are we good? So I put an offering in there, and I felt their presence again. And so when they are asking for offerings, I just make sure to hurry up, because they will get annoyed and they will leave. If you ignore them, they will get annoyed and they'll leave. And sometimes they'll just leave. And sometimes if they feel you owe them something, they're going to destroy a few things when they go. They're going to probably take a few items with them when they go. And so I think whenever I just get that feeling that the fairies are wanting an offering, I make sure to handle that, because I don't want them to go away, and I don't want to lose my favorite items, and I happen to love their chalice, so I don't want that broken. Oh, that's one thing that I should mention. Whenever you part with a magical creature, whether it be a deity or an ally, and they feel you've been disloyal, shit's gonna break. And it's gonna be some of your favorite stuff. So, for example, if you are disloyal to the Fae, then they're gonna start breaking your stuff. And it might be stuff, it'll start with stuff that you have that represents them, but then it'll go on to your stuff. Mostly, it's the stuff that represents them, because they're showing you, you've been disloyal, you've broken trust, you've broken a pact. And so, for that, they're going to break your representations of them, because you're not worthy of that representation anymore. Which is why the plate was broken and then taken. They're pissed. And so you need to handle that, and if you need to break a connection with something, then you need to do it respectfully. And, that's really important to note with anything you're doing magically. So, now that I've talked about that and my experience with offerings, I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I leave as offerings. So, one of the things I leave as offerings is this. Bubble wrap. Because the Fae like anything having to do with bubbles. So, I like leaving bubble wrap. They seem to like it. Ah, it feels good. It's hot here. Another thing that I leave are bubbles. Another thing that I offer is fruit. I will offer fruit, sweetbreads that I make. One of the things that they like that is not going to be in any book is they apparently do like gummy candy. I don't know, I don't remember where, I wish I remembered where so I could give credit, but I remembered listening to something on a podcast that the person who was talking said that the fairies like candy, like gummy candy. And at first I was like, nah, come on. Like, because I don't like to leave offerings that aren't nature made, you know, that aren't, like, natural. So one day I was out of things to offer for them, and all I had was some green sour apple gummy candy. And I know when I've left an offering that they really enjoy. And the way that I know this is because I get like a rush of excitement. It's like a happy excitement. And it's it hits me as soon as the offering hits the altar. And like when I leave milk and honey, it's a really grateful feeling that I leave, like a happy sort of mallow feeling I get. But when I left this candy, the second it dropped into the offering bowl, I had, like, it hit me, like, this feeling. So, apparently they like green sour apple gummy candy. They like foil. They're quite partial to foil. I can put a piece of foil on the altar, and they won't let me take it for weeks at a time, and then they'll be like, you know, it's not shiny to us anymore. Take it. We want something new. I've left I've left things on their altar. Now here's the thing to note about if you're gonna leave something, a possession on their altar. It has to stay on their altar. And if you have to remove it for whatever reason, like if it's a piece of jewelry and you have to remove it, you should probably ask before you take it, because you've given that to them and now you're stealing it back. So my friend gave me a wind chime for my birthday one year, and it came in this box. And this box, of course, as you can see, is all sparkly and shiny. And so I gave it to the Fae. And I put stuff in here that that I feel represents them or my relationship with them, or things that are Fae-like. If I have extra bells or ribbon, things like that, I'll put it in here. But if I take it, I make sure and I ask, and then I bring it back pretty promptly. You can give all sorts of different things to the Fae. The one thing that I would really recommend not giving them is anything with metal in it. The reason I would abstain from metal is because it might have iron in it, and any kind of iron with fairies is not good. So I would just not do the metal. I would stay with more natural things like flowers or incense. Like you can make an incense blend and leave it on their altar for them. You can do, you know, all kinds of things. I gave them a flower stem to one of my representations of the Fae for a wand, and just things like that. You know, you can make things for them. Well, I think I've covered everything in this video, and hopefully you guys were able to gather some information from it that you did not already have. So until next time, many blessings, and I'll see you later.